Texans versus Bengals this Sunday. Gonna be a great matchup. Texans, they're on the up and up. So, what do you say? Why not us? What do you think the score is gonna be? Texans, Bengals this Sunday. Give me your score predictions down in the comments section. If you get it right, maybe a little prize coming your way. But go down and give me your score prediction for Texans and Bengals. We got a preview of the Texans and Bengals matchup this weekend. Some key injuries, some stuff to look out for, and it's going to be a great show. But I am once again asking you to share this video. Spread the word to all Texans fans across the world. The first 5 people to share today's video on Twitter get a shout out on the next show. It's as easy as hitting that share icon. Click share to Twitter and then tag me at Jeremy Chuggs, and you'll get a shout out on my next video. The first 5 people to do that will get a shout out. This is the fastest growing Texans channel on YouTube, so join the wave. First, some key injuries to watch out for, but we've got some great injury news on tap for you today. He's back. Derer Stingley finally returning to practice, is able to return for this game up against the Bengals if this week of practice goes well for the young man out of LSU. Woo! So good to finally have some guys coming back into the fold. Derer Stingley, this secondary with Steven Nelson and company hasn't been too shabby, even though, completion percentage, they're one of the worst in the league in allowed completion percentage. But Derer Stingley, so good to have the young man back. Was looking promising at the start of the season, but can't wait to have him back for this week or next at worst, in my opinion. Derer Stingley, great to have him back. These guys, I don't know. Robert Woods, Dameon Pierce, Sheldon Rankins, Brevin Jordan, Fairbairn, all questionable to return this weekend. Robert Woods with that foot that was out last week. Dameon Pierce was out last week. Brevin Jordan, Fairbairn obviously injured against the Buccaneers in that last game. That's why the Texans went ahead and signed Matt Amendola to the practice squad. And these guys, not necessarily injured. I'm not worried yet on these guys, but these guys did not practice today. Blake Cashman, the emerging, probably best linebacker on the team so far for the Houston Texans. Nico Collins, Steven Nelson, Will Anderson, Andrew Beck. I wonder if this is more of like a precautionary rest, maybe some bangs and bruises here and there for these guys. But these guys did not practice today. And a big one for the Cincinnati Bengals. Ja'Marr Chase could miss this weekend with a back injury he suffered this past week. Not good for the Bengals offense. Great for the Texans defense if Ja'Marr Chase isn't able to go. I'll keep you updated with his status throughout the week. But right now, I think it's about a flip of a coin whether or not Ja'Marr Chase plays this weekend up against the Texans. Back injuries are no joke. So, like I said, I'll keep you updated throughout the whole week. Another reason why you got to subscribe to the channel so you never miss out on Texans news and rumors. Now, what to watch out for in this matchup, Texans versus the Bungholes. First up, we've got, obviously what everybody's going to be looking at. It's the QB battle, the QB matchup. C.J. Stroud. Yeah. One of the top quarterbacks this entire season, has been looking amazing up against Joe Burrow so far this season. 62% completion percentage for C.J. Stroud against Joe Burrow, 66.9. Very nice. But yards, touchdowns, interception, QB rating, all going to the way of C.J. Stroud. Pretty good matchup. We got 2 top 10 quarterbacks, in my opinion, both coming off of very good games. C.J. Stroud, 30 of 42, 470 yards, 5 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. And Joe Burrow, no slouch last week up against the Bills. A very tough competition up against the Bills. 31 of 44, 348 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Both these quarterbacks are coming in hot. So, begs this question for my audience. Who do you think has the better game this Sunday? Do you think it's our guy, the franchise, the best guy on the field, C.J. Stroud? Do you think it's him? Type in CJ7. Or if you think it's Joe Shiesty, Mr. Brr himself, type BRR for Joe Burrow. Next up, the running attack, or the lack thereof of a rushing attack. We'll break that down in just a moment. But first, we couldn't do today's show if it wasn't for Prize Picks, the sponsor of today's show. It's daily fantasy sports made easy, folks. It's as easy as picking 2 or more players, choosing more or less on their projected stat types, and then choosing either a flex or power play. Prize Picks is the most fun I've had, winning up to 25 times my money this football season. Like I said, you just choose 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projected stats, and place your entry. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types are what makes Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Here are my picks for this weekend. I think the Texans offense keeps on rolling. That's why I'm going with more on receiving yards from Tank Dell, more on receiving yards for Nico Collins, and more on CJ7's pass yards. You can use my picks or you can fade my picks as long as you do it with Prize Picks. And they even offer a reboot policy. Listen up, Texans fans. I know we've dealt with so many injuries this season. I went over all of them at the top of the show, and that's why this reboot policy from Prize Picks is so important. Because if you have a player who exits a game in the first half and does not return in the second, that player is rebooted. Prize Picks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with an injury insurance policy. I love the sound of that. Go to prizepicks.com and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for that $100 deposit match. Prize Picks. It's daily fantasy sports made easy. So we talked about the rushing attacks or lack thereof. Here's the Texans so far on the season. Not pretty. 3.2 yards per carry. That's 31st. 0 rushes of 20-plus yards. Believe it or not, the only rush that the Texans have had that's been even close is 17 yards by Dameon Pierce. 16.4 rushing first down percentage. That's last in the league. That means when running the ball on third down, they're only getting first down 16.4% of the time. That is the worst in the NFL. And 3 rushing touchdowns. That is tied for 29. With the Cincinnati Bengals, who also garner a awful rushing attack, even though they have Joe Mixon in the backfield, who's been somewhat of a fantasy savant. 3.6 yards per carry for the Bengals rushing attack. Only 3 rushes of 20-plus yards, tied for 26. 25% rushing first down percentage, which the only anomaly on them, that's 11th in the NFL, but they're tied with the Texans with only 3 rushing touchdowns, tied for 29th. One thing to note, though, Texans defense actually pretty good against the run. Their run defense has been really stout this season. The Bengals, on the other hand, they're 31st in the NFL, allowing 5 yards a carry. So if the Texans running game was to ever turn on, if the Texans running game has any hope of ever turning a corner this season, it's this game right here. If the Texans can't run the ball against the Bengals, I hate to break it to you, the Texans can't run the ball against anyone. It's Jover, because the Texans running game has been this whole entire season. So if they can't run the ball against one of the worst rushing defenses in the entire NFL, I'm sorry, we're going to have to, everybody get on CJ Stroud's back, because this passing game is the only reason this Texans offense is doing anything this season. Now, talking about the defense, I want to be watching this Texans pass rush get after Joe Burrow, because if they can get to if they can get him in the backfield, if they can get some sacks, it's going to make Joe Burrow's life a living hell, and that's going to be great news for this Texans team. Maybe a breakout game from Will Anderson. He got a sack last week up against the Buccaneers. Maybe 2 games in a row with a sack. Why not? Why not? Breakout game for Will Anderson Jr. And the Texans' leading pass rusher this season, Jonathan Grenard, I want to see him get after Joe Burrow as well. I mean, I want to see this Texans team get 4, 5, 6 sacks on the Bengals, because that means the Texans defense is going to be able to get off the field more than likely, and the Texans offense with CJ Stroud is going to be able to put up more points. But I want to hear from you folks at home. What do you say? More or less than 3.5 sacks against the Bengals? Do you think the Texans can get 4, 5, 6 sacks against the Bengals? Type M for more. If you think, the Joe Burrow, he's too good. The Bengals are able to get the ball out. Type your L for less. I'm slamming my M for more. than more than 3.5 sacks against the Bengals. And if you want to do stuff like this, if you want to play daily fantasy sports, go to PrizePicks.com/CLNS. Like I said earlier in the show, it's daily fantasy sports made easy. And the last thing you have to watch out for, it's the AFC playoff race. It is a tightly contested race right now. I mean, it is coming down to the wire, and we're only halfway through the season, but the AFC, the middle of the AFC, everybody fighting for a wild card spot towards the end of the season, it's pretty crowded. I'm not going to lie to you. If the playoffs started today, every single AFC North team would be in the playoffs, with the Steelers, Browns, and Bengals at 5-3, Buffalo at 5-4, Houston right behind at 4-4, with the New York Jets and the LA Chargers, Indianapolis and Las Vegas at 4-5, Tennessee and Denver at 3-5, somehow still in it. But the Texans, what I'm saying is they have a good opportunity. It's in their hands for the rest of the season whether or not they can make a playoff push. So these are some games that I want you to keep an eye out for this weekend when it comes to the AFC playoff race, because once you hit the midpoint of the season, the rest of the season is really about, this team has to lose for us to get in. We've got to beat this team and this team. These games are key for us to get into the playoffs once you start getting into the final stretch. So watch the Ravens and the Browns. That is going to be a key matchup because, like I said, both teams currently in a wild card spot in the AFC. The Jags and the 49ers, keep an eye out for that because the Jags are currently leading their division. So the Texans want to kind of sneak up on the Jags, get a little bit closer. Jags, 49ers, Raiders, Jets, both those teams are behind you. So you got to gain ground on those. Whoever wins is going to be, one step closer to getting an AFC spot as well. Steelers versus Packers. Steelers, like I said, sitting at 5-3, currently in the 5 spot in the AFC playoff race. And Buccaneers versus the Titans. You got to keep track of those Titans who are right on your heels. As I said at the top of the show, the first 5 people to share this video, you're getting a shout out. And I want to thank all the real ones who support me even through all my battered, bruised stuff. I know I got some shiners. I fainted last week, but I'm here on the show this week because I love y'all and I love Texans football, and I want to represent for H-Town the best I can. So if you want to support a kid from H-Town, if you want to support the fastest growing Texans YouTube channel, share this video and make sure you're subscribed. YouTube.com/TexansTV for the best channel around the Houston Texans.